and hit the notification bell. And in the meantime, we'll see you next week, which I just said. Don't forget to follow up with a good book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Go. Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Maddrey, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
And I'm Valerie Comer, hanging out with Cooney for a few minutes until she decides she's had enough, which usually takes what? A
couple seconds. Yeah, a minute. Yeah, not long.
She's already tensing up.
Yeah.
Poor Cooney.
So today, the three of us are going to be chatting about the CCR we've been reading recently, just for fun. I know that I've read some good stuff, and we've been talking off the recording, and everybody seems pretty happy about what they've got to talk about. So that is what we're going to do. So, Narelle, you want to go first?
I'll go first. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about is releasing on Tuesday. So I'll be very careful in terms of not talking about spoilers. And that's To Win a Prince by Toni Shiloh.
You got an advance copy, hey?
I did. So thank you to Bethany House and NetGalley for the advance copy. Now, have either of you read this book?
I have an advance copy sitting on my Kindle, but I have not gotten to it yet.
Okay. No worries. All right. So as I said, this one's releasing on Tuesday, the 13th of September. So I'm finally reading a book that's on time and a brand new release for this
episode. Said the 13th, right? Is that what?
Yes.
Okay. Because it sounded for a moment like you said 30th. And I'm like, that's a while off yet. But 13th is closer.
1-3. Yes.
So this Tuesday, is a sequel, right?
Yes.
Sequel it is. Yes. Okay.
It is indeed the sequel.
Tell us all.
Yes,
including
the sequel to In Search. Yes, well, and it really is a sequel. So you know how we've talked about with some traditionally published books, it's like they're little islands. They're set in the same location, but there's often not a lot of connections, and you could take or leave or read them out of order, and it really makes a difference. This one is very much a sequel, which is why I'm going to be very careful about how I actually talk about it, because I love this one. I really enjoyed it. And I particularly enjoyed it because I had read In Search of a Prince. So it does stand alone. So you can read it as a standalone, but I highly recommend reading In Search of a Prince first, because it will
Narelle, you're advising reading books in order.
Yes.
I just want to get that clear for our audience.
Come to the dark side. Even Narelle's there now. So
well, as I said, I do go there with this book, definitely, because it's a genuine sequel. So and it's the one we've been looking forward to because it's Iris's story. So I absolutely adored Iris in Search of a Prince, and she was Bree, who is now the queen. And it's set in Africa. So I probably won't go too much into the background. We've already talked about that when we had Toni on. We did a whole episode on In Search of a Prince. So you can go check that out in our archives. I think it was one that released in around about February, March, earlier this year.
Something like that. I saw this new feature on YouTube in the back area where I can maybe make a little flag that tells you links to another related video. If I can figure out how to actually do that at this time, I will do that.
Cool. That sounds so fun. So,
people.
So with Iris, she is also from the US, like Bree. And so Bree has obviously become the queen, which is what happens. There's no spoilers there in the first book. And Iris was her best friend who's decided to stay on the African island with her. And she's a fashion designer. So we actually see her setting up her fashion business. And one of her goals is to help the people on the island to actually improve their standard of living. So there's the one thing she's noticed is quite a distinction between the wealthier class of people there and everybody else. And so she'd like to see people have a chance to actually improve themselves. That's very American in the way she thinks, in terms of this improving their standard of living, and everyone rises up together is very much Iris. So she has this business set up, and the hero, now I'm not even going to mention his name, precisely because if you have not read the first book, it will spoil the first book. So don't read the blurb of the second book if you haven't read the first book, because
Even the
And,
blurb is a
yes.
spoiler. All right.
Okay.
Yes, I would literally don't look at it, read In Search of a Prince first. So the hero is, his journey in this book was completely unexpected.
Okay.
I did not know. I walked into this book thinking, well, it's probably going to be similar to the first one. It'll be a lot about the palace. And the first book was a lot about palace intrigue and things that were going on to thwart Bree's plans to actually take over the throne from her grandfather. But this one is not, doesn't have that intrigue and mystery in the same way. But the journey of the hero in this book is absolutely fascinating, and it twisted and turned in ways that I did not expect.
Cool.
And I love the ending, but it was not where I expected to go. So congratulations, Toni, you had me there reading and reading and reading, yeah, to see what actually happened with them. So, and another thing that came up in this book in terms of the conflict, it really was Iris looking at being unequally yoked. And that's something that not a lot of books go there these days, I've noticed, in terms of looking at that issue of who do I marry. And in the first book, Bree was very aware of that, and she didn't want to end up in an arranged marriage with someone who didn't share her faith. And that thread of being unequally yoked and that actually being an issue in terms of relationships does follow through in this story as well. Okay. And Iris is very aware of that, and that's a lot of her conflict relates to she doesn't want to marry somebody who's not going to be on the same page with her in terms of her faith. So that's about all I'm going to say, but I did really, really enjoy this one. So if you've been looking forward to it, you're in for a big treat.
Excellent.
Do you think she left it open for a book 3?
No, because the epilogue does jump ahead a number of years. She's very much tied it up. Okay. There is potential. There would be Iris's brother. Okay. Possibly is the potential for a third book. But the way the epilogue was written, I'm not expecting a third book to happen.
Okay.
I think Toni said when we had her on that it was planned as a duology. So, I don't.
Yeah, they asked her if she had plans for Iris, and she's like, I sure do.
Yes. Yeah. So Junior, who's Iris's brother, would be the character that potentially could be in another book somewhere. And if it was Valerie, Junior would definitely be in another book somewhere.
Yeah. Whole new series.
Yes.
We just don't do 2 books.
No. Well, there would be 4 more set in that island first. And then
guilty as charged.
I do it too. Yes. So not gonna lie. All
right, we'll have to ask Toni about it. When next time she's on, we'll ask her.
It's a little bit different, traditionally published versus indie in that one. So authors don't always have a lot of say in that with the traditional publishing house. And I know that Toni has written quite a few 3-book series, though.
Yes.
As her indie works. So I'm sure that she would probably prefer that. Just putting words in her mouth. But it's different when you don't call the shots on that.
Yes, absolutely. Valerie, what's your first book?
My first one is To Begin Again by Emily Conrad. It's a 3rd book in her Rhythms of Redemption series. These guys are all members of the band Awestruck. So, and Philip is a new member of the band. He's come on after, is it a bassist or a bassist?
Bassist.
Bassist?
Bassist. Here in America, it would be a bassist.
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
I just don't even know. So the first bassist with the band was fired because of a drug problem. Mm-hmm. And he refused to go to rehab. So Philip is newish to the band, and he knows why the other guy was fired. So he's hiding the fact that he takes prescription painkillers and that to excess. Oh, and it becomes a problem. So he has to hide that. He's a single dad with 2 kids, and he signed with this band because it would give him enough money to provide a stable home for his kids, to hire a nanny who would stay with them when he's out of town touring with the band and stuff like this. So he's trying to hold everything together. His wife passed away. So just right at the beginning, knowing some of Philip's struggles, and he's not a believer, and you're just like, I just didn't even really want to be in his head sometimes. I'll just put that out there. And I didn't really enjoy being in Michaela's head either at the beginning. In fact, Emily, I just about bailed on this book. I'm glad I didn't, but I just about did. Michaela is a young aspiring singer who's been invited to sing a song or two with Awestruck on their new album. She's used to getting her own way, using her body, and she sees Philip as the most likely person in that band to be a stepping stone for her, because he's obviously needs a woman in his life. The other two are engaged, so not them. At least she's got that much going for her.
Yeah.
So it made me uncomfortable a lot of times in the earlier chapters, because neither of them are believers, and the way their brains are working is probably very realistic. I just didn't like being in their heads so much. But Emily Conrad did a really good job, I thought, pulling together the redemptive threads in the first two books. So I trusted her, and I'm glad I did. That's what pulled me through, and I did enjoy quite a lot of the book later on, and I loved how it all came together in the end. So it's not an easy read, but if you are somebody who goes, oh, Christian romance is all just sappy sweet and everybody's too good to be believed, then maybe you should give Emily Conrad's Rhythms of Redemption series a try, because this is a little more what we used to call edgy, and yet it's the biblical message. The redemption is absolutely front and center in all three books.
It's interesting to me that isn't the band meant, aren't they singing Christian music, or are they not?
Oh,
I thought I remembered from the first that they were. No, I've only read the first one. So
yeah. So Gannon, who's the lead singer, and John, who's the drummer, are believers, but the band is not a Christian band,
okay,
per se, which is an interesting juxtaposition. So they're careful, like what kind of songs that they sing, but they're never, and their band manager isn't a Christian.
Okay.
He's just trying to get them the best deal from this record company or that tour group or whatever, who's gonna, open for them and all this stuff. So it's an interesting juxtaposition that way. Most of the series I've read in the past with a band in them have been, a Christian band.
Worship bands. Yeah. Okay.
And this one is not. So there is a interesting and delicate balance in there, but I will definitely pick up book 4 when it's available. So I guess that proves
there you go.
I'm a read through on this one.
So with this one, I mean, I haven't started reading any of Emily's books. I need to, but my TBR, we all know what my TBR is.
We know.
It's permanently out of control. Is it written in third person or first person? Because
I couldn't tell you
I'm listening
it up. I'd have to look it up. I don't know.
Okay. If it's first person and I'm in people's heads and I'm uncomfortable, I usually DNF. I'll be honest about that. So you've now got me thinking, I need to know if these books are first person or third person.
I think I can find it pretty quick.
Trying to remember I read the first one earlier this year, but I can't remember what POV it was.
Yeah, if it's third person, I won't be so phased. But if it's first person and I really don't like the person, I'm one of those readers that's fussy about first person.
No,
if I love the characters, I'm there.
It's third.
Okay.
She nodded. She leaned back. Amazing joy washed over her. Obviously, I'm at the end of the book because that's where it came up, because I had finished it. But no, that's third.
Cool. That works for me.
All right. So my first is A Wide and Pleasant Place by Valerie Comer. And this is the first in the Farm Fresh Market series. that correct?
Very good. Very
Yay.
good. Congratulations. You got
I'm
it.
like, well, I didn't write down the series name. I'm like, that would have been a useful information to write down, but I got it. So that's exciting. And I love seeing Britney Santoro. So if you've read The Urban Farm Fresh, Britney is the daughter of Winnie, who marries the coffee kiosk guy when her son and his daughter was like, is it? Yeah, it's not. Yeah, her son and his daughter get married, and then the two.
Parents.
She's a widow, and he is a divorced father.
Yeah.
They get married, and Britney sort of sees the chance to seize freedom because everyone's distracted and no one's really paying close attention, and basically makes a complete U-turn from the way that she was brought up to live. And it catches up with her. And she finds herself now at the start of this book, basically doing penance / exile in Galena Landing, where basically her boss, I don't think it's spoilery to say, she effectively had an affair with a client, a married client. So, oops, right?
I think that comes out in the first couple chapters,
Okay.
so not too spoilery.
Not too spoilery. And I feel like it was hinted at well enough in one of the Urbans as well, that if you've read those, it's not a surprise that Britney needs her head kicked in a little bit. Just gentle taps.
Sorry, Britt.
So her boss basically said, if you want any sort of recommendation from this firm, which is I think it's her first job. It's she's trying to get established as a graphic designer. She's like, then you're going to go do this job in Galena Landing and you better do a great job at it. Otherwise, effectively, like, I will ruin you you'll never get this sort of job again. So she goes, she's not excited about it, but she has family there. She has a cousin there, because those Santoros are everywhere. And she ends up taking this job and is just appalled at what has been going on. She's like, wow, there's a lot of work to do. But the guy, and let me look, what's his name? Is it Miles?
Trayan.
Wow, it's not Miles at all.
Not
I don't know where Miles came from.
Miles came from Memories of Mist in the Urban Farm Fresh romance.
That's probably what it is.
I do remember the characters multiple times.
So the hero, Trayan, really would like to do some of the graphic design. He would like a little extra pay for his job. He would like to get into something a little more interesting than what he's doing. He is doing this job basically to take care of his child, and to provide for this ex-wife who's a real piece of work. Nobody will cry at her funeral. So
Die.
So anyway, he's really super bitter that they hired this outsider to do this job, because he would have been perfectly capable of handling it if they would just have let him. And so thus starts the book. You've got Grumpy doesn't want to be there, butting heads with wanted that job, definitely doesn't want to be attracted to her. And it's just fun being back in Galena Landing. You get to see your Green Acres girls and, well, their families. There's so much more now than the original 3. It has exploded. Yep. They're doing all these classes. They have the school. They still have their communal straw bale home that they all meet and eat in. But it's fun to visit Green Acres again and be back in Galena Landing. And I just really enjoy seeing the evolution and growth of the town. And now they're getting this farmers market up off the ground, trying to make it a more sustainable revenue generating thing. And to do that, they need more than like a marker on a poster board for advertising. So it's a great kickoff to the series. I'm sad that the second one in the series is far away. When is that?
Spring 2023.
Spring of 2023. So maybe
it's
just
reset for May, I want to say 3rd or 6th or something.
Okay.
It may get moved up, but the way life is this summer and fall, I'm not going to guarantee that.
So read this one, or at least just put it in your Kindle with a note to read it in February.
That would work.
Which is what I've done. I actually haven't started it yet because I have such an appalling memory. If in an ideal world, I would binge, but I don't have enough reading time to actually indulge that. So sometimes I'll park books and I'll read that just before the next one comes out. Then I remember what's going on.
I have to love fans who say, oh, when a new book in that series comes out, I have to read all the books that come ahead of it. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah, I love you too, but I can't do it myself. So many books, so little time.
Yeah, I have a couple series that I'll do that for, but in general, no, I don't. Yeah, I might just read like one or two before to remind myself.
And you read so much more quickly than I do.
I do. Not lately. This year, maybe not so much. But
the year of the great move and all that.
Yeah. All right, Narelle, you got a second one?
Can I ask one question about the last one? Just because there could be I was listening to the conversation, there could be readers that have this question. With Britney, is she repentant when the book actually opens? Is she repentant about having had the affair? And because I know this will be a sticking point for some readers, but if we can reassure them in terms of how her journey goes on that, I think that would be helpful.
She gets there. She does not start there. She starts there as I am checking off days, like I'm Xing them out on my calendar until I'm out of this, and then I am off to New York City, which is on the whole other side of the country from my family. Nobody's going to police how I live. Nobody's going to police what I do. And then her faith, I would say, actually develops as opposed to even grows, because she's so she might have accepted Christ, but that was all she did. She had no interest whatsoever in any sort of spiritual growth.
She goes to church with her cousin because she knows it'll get back to her mom if she doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause they'll tattle if she doesn't. And she's looking forward again to getting to New York City so that nobody needs to know what she does. At the start, she is very much, she's mad she got caught. And that's about it. But she does.
And she does recognize that she did stupid things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ish. But it's more though that the stupid things got her caught. It's not so much that she had an affair. It's more that they should have been more careful and maybe pick someone who's not married. Maybe but she doesn't even at the very start of the book, she doesn't even really have a problem with that, because that's his problem. And if he was married, then he should have protected his marriage. That's not my fault. So she
didn't know he was married.
She's not lovable on the very first page, but for me, I know Valerie always gets them there. So, and she has redeeming characteristics, but, and she does go through just a beautiful growth through the course of the book.
Okay.
She does. So absolutely.
I think that readers who would have a problem with Britney, with her starting point, might also have a problem with Trajan's starting point as a divorced person.
Okay. He's fairly bitter. Because they both have very good faith arcs and really strong growth development as characters and in their spiritual lives. He's very bitter. They're both kind of bitter about different things, but they grow beautifully. And you see, neither of them are total depravity. You don't read and it's why do I care? They both have reasons that you care enough to keep going. They're not villains.
In disguise. No.
Yeah. So she really is the bad girl who comes good in the story.
Yeah.
And he's got to deal with this horrible ex that's obviously poisoning his life. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Poisoning his
Thank
child.
you for the clarification.
Yes, absolutely. What's your second?
My second is, what is my second? My second is The Billionaires Nanny by Elizabeth Maddrey. So I took my Billionaires out of the corner and decided I needed to start reading them. So this is book 1 in the Billionaires Next Door
Book
series.
1, you really have turned over a new leaf. I'm impressed.
I do read in order. In an ideal world, if I had plenty of time, I would read books in order. I just don't have enough reading time I've just got to be practical sometimes. And sometimes I do jump ahead. And if I'm short on time, life is too short to read a book that you're not in the mood for. True. And so sometimes I'll read an opening chapter and think, no, I'm going to skip to the next one and I'll backtrack, because romances all pretty much stand alone anyway. And you know what's going to happen. There's no spoiler because you know they get together. But anyway, that's
so you have a good pick for your second read. I'll let you carry on now.
Thank you. So with the Billionaires Nanny, I just absolutely love the premise for this book. So the whole series is based around these guys. It's a guy friend group, and they're techies into that sort of world in Washington DC. Mm-hmm. And one of them, which I think Scott was the main one who's driving all this, says there's this stock. If we buy this stock, we could do really well. So he convinces his friends to go in, and he's so generous. He actually puts in a larger share than anybody else by a country mile, but he says we'll split it evenly. He's so sweet. He's a very, very generous person. And so what happens is that it actually pays off in a bigger jackpot than they could have imagined. And so they all end up being billionaires. So they're billionaires who've just recently become billionaires. So that's really fun. And so, I think I have preconceived ideas about billionaires, and this one sort of smashed all those ideas out of the water as well, because Scott really is a very down-to-earth, normal, humble guy, and he doesn't actually really change his life. Like, he's still living in this small apartment. He's in the Old Town section of DC, and he's still going to work every day, and he just happens to have money. But his mother decides to go and broadcast to the family, oh, my son is now a billionaire. You can just imagine it. Yeah. And so he has this distant cousin who lives in LA who hears about this billionaire cousin and thinks, something ever happened to me, he'd be a good person to look after my son because he's rich. He could afford to take care of him. So she names Scott as the guardian. And of course, we have our heroine, Whitney, who's babysitting for her friend. And then there's an accident and the friend passes away and she's looking after little boy Beckett. And she's absolutely shocked when she goes to the lawyer's office and hears that Beckett's been left to this cousin he's never known on the East Coast who's a billionaire. So she convinces a lawyer to let her take Beckett over on the plane to meet him. And she's really sweet, Whitney. I really like Whitney. She has a really good heart. And she was just really concerned for this little boy. I think is he 3? Yeah. 4? 3?
Isn't Beckett amazing? I loved Beckett.
Yes. And he's so sweet. And she just loves him so much. And was really, in a way, heartbroken that her friend did not leave her as a custodian. Not that she has any money. She's originally from Kansas. She's a wannabe actor who can barely rub 2 cents together and is working the day jobs while she's trying to get the big break, which hasn't happened yet. So she packs up a life effectively, jumps on a plane to DC and is like, well, I'm going to see if this billionaire will give me custody. Why on earth would he want to look after a little boy? But of course, she hadn't met Scott. So Whitney's plans all fall apart and she ends up being the live-in nanny. And it is such a sweet story and I really enjoyed it. And I'm on a bit of a theme here in terms of propriety today, because the one thing that I really did like about this story, and maybe I wouldn't have even thought of it unless it came up, was if you've got any concerns about reading a Christian romance where you've got the characters living in the same residence without having like an aunt or a parent or someone as a chaperone, then that actually does get raised in the story. And I thought was handled really well too.
But there was Beckett.
Yes. Yes, there was Beckett, but that doesn't count for some people though.
3-year-old's such a great chaperone.
Yes, and she has her own self-contained apartment. He ends up having to buy a new place, and she ends up with this gorgeous top floor, pretty much self-contained apartment within his townhouse and all that kind of thing. But I just loved the story, and I loved how she fitted in with the girls connected to his guy group. And as we know, Beth does really good guy group stories.
She really does.
You get all the good stuff with that as well. But it was a great opening story to a series, and I'm looking forward to reading more. And I've started book 2, and I'm enjoying that one too.
I'll put in, I'll just say definitely. I'm one of Beth's first readers, and when she sent it off to me, she's like, "Tell me all the things that are wrong with it." And I sent it back, and I went, "Well, there's a couple of commas in the wrong place." Like, I said, this is as close to perfect a story of a romance arc and stuff as I've seen it. And yeah, there's some extra stuff on the side that you don't usually find in a Billionaire book or the nanny book. It's not a secret baby. It's not his child, so there's some different twists to it. But yeah, I love the whole premise and the way it played out as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
So reader, go get in on the ground floor. Book 2 is not long out, and book 3 is, I don't know, momentary, I think. Maybe already out, maybe coming soon, because we're a little in advance recording, but should be pretty close.
End of September, early October is the goal.
Okay,
cool.
So still a couple weeks out.
Yep.
Good. Can't wait.
What you got for your next one, Valerie?
Apparently I'm on the Emily theme. We had Emily Conrad, and my second one is by Emily Dana Botras.
Okay. The
Trouble with Tulips. And Narelle, I've been poking fun at you today for picking book ones. So this one, I talked to you guys about another book in the series a few months ago, probably back in March or April. And that was the Loophole in Lilies, and it was book 4 in the series. So this is book 1 that I just read now, Trouble with Tulips. And I have to say that the two books have siblings as the main characters. And I just kept going, okay, but Duncan's story hasn't happened yet. This is his sister, like who is happily married and whatever all in book 4. It's like, I just had to keep putting my brain back into forget what happened later because anyways. So you should read books in order. I should read books in order. Kim has dreamed about her big brother's best friend for years. She's had a crush on him since she was a teenager, but he's never noticed her. Now her mom has an autoimmune disease, and she's always loved gardening, and she likes to enter her garden into this annual contest thing. And she says something to Kim about it, and Kim's like, I can make that happen for you. And so she calls her big brother's best friend, who is a landscape designer, and says, would you help me do this for my mom? And he doesn't want to because he's really grumpy. If we've got the grumpy trope, this guy is like the ultimate grumpy trope. So, but finally he does find himself pulled into it. He's best friends with her brother. He's hung out in their house. He knows their mom. He likes her. He does, whatever, he'll help. But he feels incredible guilt for the way his own mother and brother passed away. And so as soon as he begins to realize that Kim has a thing for him, and oh my goodness, he might have a thing for her, then he's just like, no. Brick walls, blocks, everything. So he tries to keep her at a distance. And Kim, of course, has her own struggles, and she's about 5 or 6 years younger than him. So she's trying to still sort out why she stayed in her hometown. She suspects it's because of this thing with Jake. And now Jake is like, first he acknowledges he likes her, and then he puts up this brick wall, and she's like, fine, I just need out of here. But what do I really need in life? So it's got some of those fun tropes going on, and I really did enjoy it. And I think that just, I think I'll read book 2 next. Not book 5. Yeah, just
or 3.
Might as well read book 2 next.
Cool. That sounds fun. Brother's best friend is always good.
Yeah. I've seen one. I'm trying to remember the title of it, where the brother was the younger brother with the best friend. So then you've got the age thing,
with the older lady.
Yeah. Which, I mean, even if you're like I mean, if you're 14 and 17, that's incredibly horrible.
Yeah.
But if you're 24 and 27, is it still incredibly horrible? It might be, you know. So it's just a hard one, but it's a fun twist on it as well.
Yeah. Cool. My second one is Potential Threat by Tara Grace Ericson, and it is romantic suspense, but it's not super suspensey. But it is romantic suspense. It is a lifestyle icon TV chef is the girl, and it is also brother's best friend, but her brother's best friend happens to work for her brother's bodyguard agency, which works out well because she is getting threats. And so her brother is like, you go protect my sister because I trust you to do that, but also don't look at her that way, or, you know, if you put your hands on her, I will murder you. So so it's really kind of fun. This is the spinoff. We talked about
I was going to ask.
Yeah, we talked about Dandelion, Dancing with Dandelion.
Yes.
With Tara and Andy and
The guy
started a security agency. And so this is that security agency. So we don't see Andy and her husband, but we hear about them. They are mentioned. They're the other owners. They own it with this brother.
Okay.
And I didn't write down the guy's name because, you know, that would have been useful. So of course I didn't do that. But it was really fun. It was, it's not the kind of romantic suspense that leaves you like gripping the edge of your chair tightly as you turn the pages, like waiting. It's a gentler romantic suspense, if that makes any sense. There's still suspense, but it's not, your heart's not pounding and you're not like,
you could maybe fall asleep at 11 o'clock at night if you'd been reading it.
Yeah, you could read a chapter 2 before bed and still go to sleep and not have nightmares or heart palpitations or anything. Yeah. It's not
I have enough trouble sleeping without adding
it's not scary. And
is it 50-50 romance suspense, or is it more romance?
Honestly, I'd say it's heavier on the romance than the suspense. There's definitely suspense. It's not just romance with a suspensey thread. It is still a suspense. I think it's legitimately romantic suspense, but it is not Irene Hannon, you know, where you're like,
I love Irene Hannon's beach romances, which are not suspensey at all.
Yeah, okay. It's not Terry Blackstock. It's but yeah, it's really good. And I enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see how that pans out. And I love the little tie to Dandelion and Bloom's Farm and that kind of thing.
So I have to ask, did she set that series in Minden as well?
No, it's in a city.
Just curious, because she has kind of done to Minden what I've done to all my series as well. They're all interlinked, and townspeople and farm people and whoever all is.
I feel like she might be in New York City. The protection agency is in DC area, but I feel like the chef is either in Chicago or New York City, and it might be Chicago.
On the spot.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't write it down. It might be Chicago because that would be near Minden.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know, but it's not in Minden. It's in this one in particular is in a city, and I know the agency is based in DC. But
and it'd have to be a city if they're filming TV stuff. Mostly that's in a city as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have to be very famous for them to come to you.
Right. Yeah. And she lives in this penthouse high rise. So, which again, they don't have most places that aren't cities.
Really?
Yeah. You don't see those
Small
in the
town Minden and Galena Landing don't have high rises. Who knew?
Not generally. So did anybody, we're kind of long. Did anybody have a third they desperately needed to talk about?
I only had two Emily.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yay. We would love to know what you've been reading lately. Feel free to tell us in the comments. We appreciate you joining us at Story Chats. And If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. You can subscribe if you're listening just to the audio on your podcast to your podcast app as well. And that's always good for us. We would love to see you back with us next week. But in the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.